get a Bible. Get to Genesis chapter 14 and get it in front of you. So whether you brought a paper Bible or whether you've got a phone or a tablet, get your eyes on Genesis 14. There are moments in life when something is placed in front of you that looks good. It's not illegal. It's not immoral. It's not obviously wrong. It might not even be sinful. Could be profitable and make sense, and yet it might be bad for you. Because what you don't see in that moment is that taking it may be tying yourself to something. Most things come with strings attached. Right? Ain't nothing in this world free. Some opportunities don't just bless you. They come with strings attached. Some offers don't just increase you, but they claim you. And in that moment, the question is, can I take this thing? You want me to be specific? Not yet. I want to keep it here for a minute. The real question is, what does taking this, accepting this, joining this, what does this attach me to? Because Genesis 14, we're going to read a story of a guy who fights a battle, wins the battle, is offered all the spoils from the battle, and he says no. Which seems insane. You fought it. You lived through it. For crying out loud, didn't you earn it? But he says no. Have you ever noticed that some people just always seem to get it right? I think about people I respect, and I think, how does he get it right every time? How is he always right? Take like Pastor Bernie, for example. A guy who just, Helen, what are you laughing about? Some guys just get it right. They don't take the deal they shouldn't, even though it looks good. They don't grab what others fight for. They don't walk through every open door. It almost looks like some people always get it right. And listen, from the cheap seats where we're sitting, it probably looks like they get it right, but they're not. Especially Abram, right? We've seen Abram make highs and lows. And if you're wondering why I'm saying Abram and not Abraham, it's because in a couple chapters, God's going to change his name to Abraham. Then for the rest of the Bible, he's known as Abraham. So we're going to go through this like a little awkward. I'm going to go back and forth between saying Abram and Abraham for a couple more weeks. Abram doesn't always choose well. We've already read some stories where he doesn't choose well. Today, we're going to see him choose really well. Abram's going to look like the guy that just gets it right every time. And like, what's the difference between choosing what looks good and choosing what is right? Because if I have to choose between sinning and not sinning, well, that's easy. I can preach that one every week. Ready? Don't sin. Don't choose sin. Oh, okay. Thanks, Bob. Wow, I'll write that one down in front of my Bible. Don't choose sin, right? That's not hard. It's when we're faced with something that looks good, but something inside says that's not for you. And you can't make the argument about why it's not for you, but you know it's not for you. Let's sum it up. Okay. Grace received produces separation lived. That's a mouthful. Grace received. Knowing what you have been saved from, what you've been forgiven of, what you've been called to, what you've been brought to, that you've been placed into God's family, grace received and owned and settled in your soul produces separation lived, a life that's lived differently. Those are the people that always seem to get it right. The one who lives separately. You know, holy just means separate, different. Those who live separated are the ones who have received and processed and grabbed onto and understood grace. But before we get to Abram, you got your Bible out? Everybody look at the Bible, Genesis 14. Whole bunch of names in there look like they're fun to pronounce, huh? All right, now your eyes are just going to do this. You're going to go down to where the narrative starts again. Do we skip verses in this church? Why? It's God's word. All of God's word is profitable, right? And if God took the time to put it in there, can we spend 60 seconds and just read it together and maybe another 60 seconds and figure out what it says? Because I don't think it's going to take a rocket scientist. But let's just go through it. Genesis 14, 9 verses. We'll start here. In the days of Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Elasar, Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of Goyim, these kings made war with Bera, king of Sodom, Bersha, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah, Shemeber, king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, that's Zor. That poor guy doesn't even get a name. And all these joined forces in the valley of Siddim, that's the Salt Sea, or the Dead Sea as we call it. 12 years they served Chedorlaomer. But in the 13th year, they rebelled. And in the 14th year, Chedorlaomer and the kings who were with him came and defeated the Rephaim and Ashtoreth Karnaim, the Zuim and Ham, the Emin and Shavah-Kiriathaim, and the Horites in their hill country of Seir, as far as El Paran on the border of the wilderness. Then they turned back and came to En-Mishpat, that's Kadesh, and defeated all the country of the Amalekites and also the Amorites who were dwelling in Hazazon Tamar. See, clear as mud. Right? Then the king of Sodom, the king of Gomorrah, the king of Admah, the king of Zeboim, the king of Bela, that is Zor, went out and they joined battle in the valley of Siddim with Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, Tidal, king of Goyim, Amraphel, king of Shinar, and Arioch, king of Elasar, 4 kings against 5. All right, now we're all on the same page, right? No, not at all. Let's make this a little bit easier. You've got 4 Mesopotamian kings, Chedorlaomer, Arioch, Amraphel, and Tidal, versus 5 Canaanite kings. Now, when we say Mesopotamian kings, these guys are a big deal, okay? Elam is a big deal. This is an empire's worth of kings, and the Canaanite kings are like king of a city. So king of a city, the 5 kings in Canaan. The 5 kings in Mesopotamia are kings of like empires. So here's a map. Let me make this even easier for you. These are the kings in Mesopotamia. Look how much area they have. Yeah, these guys are a big deal, and they're not nice. And they come and they crush these 5 little city kingdoms down here in Canaan. And for 12 years, the cities have to pay tribute back to the empire. And on the 12th year, or the 13th year, they say, you know what? I'm tired of paying. Let's just not pay. What are they going to do? Well, we just read. In the 14th year, Chedorlaomer gets his buddies together. And by the way, I know it's pronounced Chedorlaomer, but since the Bible makes him out to be a bad guy, I think it's funnier to call him Chedorlaomer because it reminds me of cheese. And I got the mic and I'll do whatever I want. So Chedorlaomer gets his buddies together and they go and they're going to come in. Let's see if I can do this with a red dot. They're going to come down through here and wipe out all these people. They're going to move around south and wipe out all those people. And they're going to create a trap for these 5 kings that aren't paying their dues. Okay? So the Mesopotamian kings are coming back to fight the Canaanite kings. And on the way through, they defeat the Rephaim, the Zuzim, the Emin, and the Horites as they come down the west side of the Jordan River. They get down south to En-Mishpat, they turn back, and they defeat the Amalekites and the Amorites, thus creating like this circle around these 5 kings so they have nowhere to go. 4 kings versus 5 kings. 4 big kings versus 5 little kings. Now, the valley of Siddim was full of bitumen pits, tar pits, okay? And the 4 kings are coming, and the 5 kings have gotten together, and they're going to go fight against them. And let's see how well the battle goes. I bet you it's going to be a fair fight, real close. And as the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled, well, that didn't last long. Battle starts. The kings are already running away. Some of them fell into them, the bitumen pits, and the rest fled to the hill country. This is not a fair fight. This is a rout. They are getting crushed. So the enemy, this is Chedorlaomer and his goons from out east, took all the possessions of Sodom and Gomorrah and all their provisions and went their way. They also took Lot, the son of Abram's brother, who was dwelling in Sodom, and his possessions and went their way. Then one who had escaped came and told Abram the Hebrew, who was living by the oaks of Mamre the Amorite, the brother of Eshcol and Aner. These were allies of Abram. That's going to be important later, okay? Mamre is Abram's friend, and Mamre's brothers, Eshcol and Aner, are buddies with Abram, okay? When Abram heard that his kinsmen had been taken captive, he led forth his trained men, born in his house, 318 of them, and went in pursuit as far as Dan, which is northern Israel. He's chasing after this coalition of kings that have captured all the people in Sodom and Gomorrah, including his nephew Lot. And he divided his forces against them by night, he and his servants. And he defeated them and pursued them to Hobnah, north of Damascus. Now, he probably didn't fight all 5 kings. At this point, he probably fought the platoon that was holding hostage the people of Sodom and Gomorrah and their possessions. All he cares about is getting Lot back and whoever's in that camp. He's not worried about taking on the entire army, but he wins this battle. Then he brought back all the possessions and also brought back his kinsman Lot with his possessions and the women and the people. Grace received produces courage. Abram could have just stayed out of it. He could have said, not my problem. Because remember in the last chapter, he and Lot weren't getting along because they had too many sheep. And Abram's like, well, you go this way, I'll go that way. Or you go this way and I'll go that way. And Lot pitches his tent towards Sodom because the valley of Jordan looks so beautiful and so watered. So Lot made his choice. Lot made his bed. It's his problem. That's what Abram could have said. He could have said, Lot left me a long time ago and I'm not going to get involved. It's not my fight. What am I going to do against 5 kings? Lot made his decision. But when Abram hears that Lot has been taken captive, he gets moving, and he gets moving quick. 318 trained men who were born in his house. Stop thinking of Abram as an old man with a shepherd's crook hitting a sheep. He's like a tribal king at this point. If he's got 318 men who were born in his camp that were raised up and trained to fight, not by him, he's not a warrior, so he had to pay somebody to train these people because there's no police. Like back then, if you wanted to protect your stuff, you had to get people to protect your stuff. He's got at least 318 men born in his house that can fight. He's probably a team or a tribe of 1,500, if not 2,000 people that he's kind of running this organization. He's a big deal. He's not quite as big as the king of Sodom and Gomorrah, but he's becoming a very big deal. He gets his men, 318, and he takes some of his buddies' men, Mamre, Anar, and Eshcol, because we'll see that later. They get a little force together, and they go fight, and they win this battle. Grace received produces courage. He could have said, not me. But he gets involved because those who have received grace love differently. Loving differently means stepping into a fractured family situation that you didn't create, but you're getting involved because you love people. When your brother does something dumb, when your sister's marriage blows up, do you say, not my problem? Or do you run for support? When you visit someone in jail, even though everyone else has written them off. You know we have a jail ministry here, people who go and visit folks in jail. Every week. They go down on Sunday morning and lead prisoners in a Bible study. That is awesome. That is amazing. Yeah. Listen, I don't even know how many are involved at this point. But they love and they serve and they go every week. When you take responsibility for a child that technically isn't your problem, that's loving differently. That's loving courageously. When you forgive someone who keeps making bad decisions, not because they deserve it, but because you didn't deserve to be forgiven and you have processed grace and you have felt the difference. When you foster a child, when you adopt a child, when you mentor someone, when you show up, when you risk your reputation to stand next to someone who's fallen, that's loving differently. When you refuse to abandon a prodigal. When you move towards the mess instead of protecting your comfort. That's what Abram does. Lot chose Sodom, and yet Abram ran after him. Because grace never says, that's not my problem. Grace says, I have been rescued, therefore I can risk. Grace doesn't protect comfort, it protects people. Those who have processed grace love courageously. All right. So Abram wins the battle. That's verses 1 through 9, 1 through 16. The battle's over. Then the king of Sodom goes out to meet him. Well, where'd he come from? Remember earlier when it said the king of Sodom and Gomorrah fled? Well, the kings got away, but the people and all the stuff from the city got ransacked and taken, and they took out all the gold and silver and idols and anything that was valuable, and they're going to take it back to Elam, which eventually becomes the kingdoms of like Persia and stuff like that, but that doesn't matter, and I shouldn't have said that because now I probably confused you anyway. The king of Sodom goes out to meet him. He hears that Abram, this tribal guy, has gone and fought and won and brought back his people and all his stuff. And they go back to Abram's camp, which is just south of Jerusalem, and the king of Sodom thinks, well, maybe I better go over and get my stuff. So the king of Sodom went out to meet him at the valley of Sheva, that's the king's valley, just south of Jerusalem, and Melchizedek. This guy is a big deal, right? He's a big deal. Everybody say big deal. He's a big deal. Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was a priest of God Most High. And he blessed him. He blessed Abram and said, blessed be Abram by God Most High, possessor of heaven and earth. And blessed be God Most High, who has delivered your enemies into your hand. And Abram gave him a tenth of everything. Because grace received produces worship. People who have processed grace worship louder. They worship more. They are just so in love with Jesus because they understand what they've been saved from and what they've been called to. See, after the battle, the king of Sodom goes out. I skipped something. Forgive me for a second here. No, I'm good. Sorry. This is tough, like 2 sermons, man. Messes with your head. After the battle, the king of Sodom shows up, and you expect a negotiation. Okay? Imagine if you found a wallet in town, and you got home, and you looked the guy's name up, and you type it into Facebook, and you send him a message like, hey, man, I found your wallet. And the guy says, great. Can you meet me down at the grocery store? So you meet him down at the grocery store, and the wallet's full of cash, and you give the guy the wallet, and what are you kind of thinking? He'll give me a little something for finding his wallet, right? You know, like, I returned it with the cash. It wasn't like, oh, I found it empty. You give the guy back his stuff. So what you're expecting socially for the king to do is to give Abram a portion of the plunder, even though Abram technically has all of it. You expect a negotiation. But before Sodom speaks, heaven steps in. There's this meeting with the king of Sodom, and then the king of Salem comes, named Melchizedek. Now, here's what's really fascinating about Melchizedek. The name Melchizedek means king of righteousness. He's the king of Salem, or king of Shalom, which is king of peace. Salem is the city, Salam, that is now known as Jerusalem, or as we say, Jerusalem. He's the king of righteousness. He's the king of peace. Some people think, oh, that must be Jesus, like in an early Old Testament Christophany, because there are times when the pre-incarnate Jesus shows up in the Old Testament. This is not one of them. He's a big deal, but he's not that big of a deal, right? Because when you get to Hebrews has a ton of great things to say about Melchizedek, but it says Jesus is coming, and he is a priest in the order of Melchizedek, and he is greater than Melchizedek. So while Melchizedek is a big deal, this is not God on high, but his name means king of righteousness. He's the king of peace. He's a priest of God, which is something you don't see in the Old Testament. The king and the priest never hold the same office. This guy is a big deal. And before Sodom can come, before Bera, the king of Sodom, can come and make an offer to Abram, Melchizedek steps in and centers Abram's soul on what's important. Look what he says to him. Verse 19, Melchizedek says, "Blessed be Abram by God Most High, the possessor of heaven and earth. And blessed be God Most High, who has delivered your enemies into your hand." He centers Abram's soul on two truths. One, God is the possessor of heaven and earth. You think all this stuff is yours now. It's not. It's all God's. And two, God delivered your enemies into your hand. Like, listen, tough guy, I know you think you're a big deal because you and 318 of your friends and your buddy soldiers went out and you won a war against the king. You should be dead. There is no reason you should have won that war. Oh, but we divided our forces by night. We're so smart. No. God delivered you. Just understand, God delivered you. Yes, you fought. Yes, you're tired. Yes, you feel like you earned it. Yes, you were part of that. But you were delivered by God, and every one of us has a story where we worked really hard, we sacrificed a lot, and yet we understand none of that would have mattered had God not delivered us. And everything that we think we've earned from that is actually God's. That's Melchizedek setting the stage for the conversation Abram's about to have. And Abram responds, once his soul is reoriented, with worship. It says Abram gives a tenth back to Melchizedek. Tenth is the same word, the Greek word tithe, that we hear all about in churches. Now you're like, oh, he's going to tell me I have to give 10%. I don't care what you give. Bible does, but I don't. I'm tired of fighting with you. Okay? And I've heard the arguments. Don't email me. I'm not even going to respond if you email me. That's Old Testament, we're in the New Testament. That's Old Covenant, we're in the New Covenant. That's under law, we're under grace. You want to go through that right now? Sure. Okay, here we go. There is no such thing as Old Testament, New Testament. That's just how we divide the Bible so we can find the books, all right? At no point in Scripture does Jesus say, everything written from here on is New Testament and everything before this doesn't matter. No, he said not a jot or a tittle will pass away. All of that matters. But doesn't Romans say that we're under grace, not law? It does. And before God establishes the law, which isn't coming till Exodus when Moses comes down the mountain, we already see Abram giving a tithe back to the Lord. The tithe predates the law, and it predates Abram. This is a normal activity in life. So here's what would happen. If you live in a kingdom, anybody here live in a kingdom? Oh yeah, you do. You don't have to recognize it. You don't have to act like it. You're in God's kingdom. And the proper response to the king is, this is all yours. I am entitled to nothing. You could take all of it at any time, and there's nothing I can do about it. To submit myself, to show you that I'm submitted, I'm giving, I'm offering a tenth back to you. That's what a tithe was. It was normal in history before God ever instituted it. Now, those of us who tithe can tell you 90% with me and God goes way further than 100% on my own. If you were writing down, 1230, Financial Peace University, Dave Ramsey, he's going to tell you the same thing. 90% with you and God will go further than 100% by yourself, and that's all I'm going to say about tithing. That's all I have to say about that. Look at that, 20-year-old pop culture reference, Forrest Gump. How about that? You don't get that at every church. That's my applause break, Forrest Gump. I'll take it from one person. Thank you, Sue. When you hear that on YouTube, Alan, just put like all kind of applause behind that, like the room exploded. Grace recognized produces worship. That's why people sing with their hands raised. That's why they're shouting the songs. That's why they're crying in worship. God, it's yours, all yours, all yours. Listen, Jordan and I don't talk during the week about what I'm preaching on or what he's singing on, okay? I knew what songs he was singing, but I wasn't really paying attention because does he not do a phenomenal job? Like, I told him last week, I wish I could show you a video of you 3 years ago and you now. Like, now I'm afraid someone's going to poach him, right? Like, it's phenomenal. But I'm sitting there singing these songs. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's everything we're saying. Father, let your kingdom come. Father, let your will be done. Those who worship loudly are those who have understood and processed grace, and they understand I should not be here. I should not have access. I should not get to be with the King. But because of grace, because I've been forgiven, because of the cross, because of the righteousness of Christ, I can stand before God, and that produces worship, and that's what we're seeing in Abram. And then the story gets even weirder. Let's get back to the thing we started talking about. What's this offer, right? The king of Sodom says to Abram, now we don't get the whole conversation. We get like the highlights, right? They probably had a meal together. The king of Sodom says to Abram, give me the persons, but take the goods for yourself. Keep all the plunder. Just give me my people back. Just so you understand what we're talking about in relative terms. Instant billionaire. Like, Abram's a pretty big deal now. He's a force to be reckoned with. He's got a military force. He's got some political capital. And now the king of Sodom is offering him wealth that he hasn't dreamed of. And Abram says, I have lifted my hand to the Lord God Most High, possessor of heaven and earth. Where'd he get that wording from? From Melchizedek. That's what Melchizedek just said. They're probably sitting around having a meal, and he's like, I have lifted my hand to God Most High, possessor of heaven and earth, right? Is that what you said earlier? Possessor? Okay, good. Possessor of heaven and earth. I would not take a thread or a sandal strap or anything that is yours, lest you should say, I have made Abram rich. I will take nothing but what the young men have eaten and the share of the men who went with me. Let Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre take their share. Remember, those were his buddies, the Amorites, that were his allies. They can take their share, and some of the men have eaten some of the food, but I don't want nothing from you, lest you say that you made me rich. Grace received produces separation. The reason Abram can say no, which seems crazy. How do some people just make the right choices? How do they live a life separate unto the Lord? Because he understands grace. He understands what Melchizedek just said to him. God owns everything, and you should be dead. But God has delivered you. God has saved you. He doesn't want anything from the king of Sodom. Listen, the offer was legitimate, it was profitable, it was even socially acceptable for the one who won the battle to accept something. Newsflash, every open door is not from God. Oh, we love that language, don't we? The Lord has opened up the door for me to move in with my boyfriend. The Lord has opened up the door for me to I don't have to report this on my taxes because the guy who gave me the money didn't send a 1099. The Lord has opened up the door, and we just, whatever ridiculous excuse you want to throw in there, the Lord has opened the door. Not every open door is from God. Sometimes things are obviously wrong. And sometimes things are like, well, I don't really see what's wrong here. Not every open door is from God. And Abram has no problem saying no to this one. And the only way you can refuse the wrong door or even recognize the wrong door is if you're living your life in a way where you've processed grace. Lord, you are king of everything. You own everything. I am just entrusted with this. I have been delivered from sin and death, and I've been justified by your son's blood. I don't deserve any of this. I will get all of my self-awareness from you. I will get all my self-worth from you. I will believe what you say about me. I'm not going to push my way into these opportunities if they tie me to something else. Well, what's so bad about taking money from the king of Sodom? Well, if you were here last week, I said, as we read the story, that Moses kind of throws a couple grenades into the text where, like, he pulls the pin and he tosses it, and it's like, that'll blow up in a couple chapters. Well, the story of Sodom is going to blow up in a couple chapters, but look what he said in chapter 13, verse 13. Now the men of Sodom were wicked, great sinners against the Lord. Not just sinners, not just good sinners, they were great sinners. And this is their king. Now, what did Melchizedek's name mean? King of righteousness. And now we have the king of great wickedness. I'm not saying like angel devil on your shoulders, but boy, it's certainly starting to feel that way. One guy telling him, hey, you are blessed by God. You have been delivered by God. And one guy is saying, hey man, you earned it. Take whatever you want. You deserve this. This is not just a financial moment. It's an allegiance moment. And if he takes the offer, he's tied to Sodom. That now Sodom can say, that's my brother, Abram. We're in partnership. I created that. And now there's going to be some give and take back and forth. And Abram says, heck no, I don't want a sandal strap. I don't want a thread. I don't want anything that ties me to you. I don't care how big the offer is. I get my self-worth from the Lord. One says God delivered you. One says you've earned it. And Abram says, pass. He will not have his blessing tied to wickedness. He's not going to be owned by what he accepts. Abram doesn't refuse Sodom to earn God's favor. He refuses Sodom because he has God's favor. I don't need that. Pile more money on it. I don't care. I don't want it. That's the difference between religion and faith. Religion says, do more, earn more, work harder, then you'll get it. Faith in Jesus says, you have been declared righteousness. It is finished. Did anybody notice what Melchizedek brought to the table? I read it. Nobody. Bread and wine. He brought bread and wine to the table. Gee, what does that remind you of? Communion, right? Genesis 14 ends with a king who brought bread and wine to a meal because it's pointing forward to something greater that's coming. He's not just delivered from a battle you shouldn't have won, Abram, but you're delivered from the battle of sin and death and judgment, and Jesus is coming, and he's going to pay the price for your sin. You have been delivered, and you're going to celebrate that, and we as a church are going to celebrate that in a moment. Grace received produces separation. You can't say no to sin until you totally process grace. Listen, whatever sin you struggle with, the one that you keep falling into, the one you're like, dang it, I did it again. Stop worrying about how to say no to that sin and just get your eyes on Jesus. And think, this is what I have been delivered from. I have been saved. I have been rescued. I am aligned with Jesus. I am filled by his Spirit. I am called to be a child of God. And suddenly, I don't want that. That's not worthy of a child of God. I'm not going to be tied to that stuff. Grace. Genesis 14 ends with bread and wine in the hands of a priest. Jordan's going to come forward and he's going to play a song. And we're all going to take communion together. But look at this, bread and wine, reminding a delivered man who saved him. Abraham was delivered from a battle he shouldn't have won. And we've been delivered too. Abram stood between two voices. One said, God has delivered you. One says, you got to earn it. Take what you earned. Communion sides with grace. Communion shouts what Jesus shouted. It is finished. There is no more battle. The battle's been won. In the upper room, Jesus took the bread and he broke it. And he said, this is my body broken for you. And he took the wine and he said, this is my blood poured out for you. We don't come to this table this morning to get blessed. We come to the table because we are blessed, because we've received grace, because we're called his children, because we're welcomed into fellowship with him. We don't have to earn it. We don't have to do more. We don't have to worry about where the next deal is coming from. So when you come remembering who delivered you. Come remembering who you are. Come because at the cross, the question of who gets the credit was settled.